Hey, how much do you make a month? Sending $4,000 to your parents is just unfair. Help us out financially. I'm married now, so I have no obligation to that household anymore. If you need help, look elsewhere. What? You got married looking like that? The same slub who always wore sweats? You're lying. I was boiling with rage at Jane's crude laughter. Let's rewind a few months. This was when I was still living at home. My name is Diane. After graduating from college, I started working from home, so there was no need to move out. Life was peaceful until it was abruptly disrupted. My brother Brian and his wife Jane moved into our family home. Apparently, they were struggling financially and thought they could save on rent by living with us. Brian had a job, but it was clear why they were broke: Jane's extravagant spending. Jane always wore fancy clothes and expensive jewelry. It was obvious that Brian's income alone couldn't sustain their lifestyle. I don't mind them moving in. I had lived with Brian until he graduated from college. Jane was the outsider, but she was now family, being Brian's wife. I had no intention of refusing to live with them, but they seemed to feel differently. It started when Jane mocked my casual work-from-home attire, calling it so unfashionable. I was shocked to hear such a thing from a family member and could only respond with, "What?" Our parents looked stunned, but Brian chuckled and said, "Leave her alone. Diane's just a jobless slub who's given up on being a woman." Brian knew I worked from home, but from that moment on, he started calling me jobless. Jane would always make snide remarks like, "You have such an ugly face. Is being a shut-in fun?" At first, my parents defended me, but they gradually started to agree with Brian, saying things like, "Diane should really start becoming independent." I felt like the whole house was against me, and just when I thought of leaving, an incident occurred. Out of the blue, Jane confronted me, saying, "Enough is enough." I was having a late breakfast in the dining room and wondered what was going on. Both my parents and Brian were there, and it turned into a commotion. In the midst of it, Jane pointed at me and shouted, "Diane, you are stealing my jewelry, aren't you?" I had no idea what she was talking about. "I haven't done anything like that," I defended myself. "Then why was this found in your closet?" she retorted, showing off a sparkling necklace. "You went through my closet without permission?" I asked, visibly irritated. Ignoring me, Jane said, "Everyone, come and see for yourselves," and led the way into my room. Rushing after Jane, who had left breakfast abruptly, I found her pulling out a box from the depths of my closet. A box I'd never seen before. "Look," she exclaimed, showing off the jewelry inside to Brian and my parents. "I didn't do this, okay? So you're saying Jane set this up?" Brian glared at me, and I felt myself shrink in fear. Despite my innocence, neither my parents nor Brian, who had been looking down on me lately, would listen. "We can't keep a thief like you in this house. You need to leave," Dad declared, giving me a month to move out. No matter how much I pleaded my innocence, my family only looked at me with cold eyes. There's no one in this family who will take my side anymore. I felt utterly alone and heartbroken. I started packing immediately and was done by the next day. Though I was given a month's grace, I couldn't bear the icy stares any longer. As I was about to leave, Jane approached me with a smug smile. "Done packing?" "Yes, I'll be out by today." Ignoring Jane's surprised look, I continued with my move. I thanked my parents for raising me as I left, but they still believed I was a thief and didn't respond. And so, I left my childhood home unaccompanied. I headed to my boyfriend Sam's place. Sam lived in a spacious house for a single person, and I had stayed over a few times. I had explained the false accusations to him the previous night, and he readily agreed to let me move in. Sam had prepared a feast for me, from my favorite hamburger steak to shrimp fry, salad, and soup. "You've had a tough time. Relax, eat, and get some sleep," he said, making me feel truly at ease. This, I thought, is what family should be like. Sam was an excellent cook, and everything he made was delicious. As I took a bite of the juicy hamburger steak, the aroma of the demi-glace sauce filled my senses, and I couldn't help but exclaim, "Mmm, delicious." In that moment of happiness, as Sam smiled at me, my phone buzzed with an SMS. Not wanting to ignore it in case it was work-related, I checked the message. It was from Brian. "Guess you're crashing at a friend's place, huh? Jane says she'll forgive you if you admit your guilt and apologize. If you want to continue being a shut-in loser, apologize to Jane." I repeatedly said I didn't do it, and Brian seems to believe my guilt. Frustrated, I texted back, "I'm not a shut-in loser. I work from home. It's sad that you don't even know that's a thing these days." Brian's reply came swiftly, "Don't bother coming back," and I decided I wouldn't. A few months later, Sam proposed and we got married. When Sam asked me how we should handle greetings to my parents, I told him it wasn't necessary. I had already cut ties with that family. I was fed up with Jane, who falsely accused me, and with Brian and my parents, who believed her. That's when I got a call. It was from Jane, the person I thought I had severed ties with. "Listen, if you were giving money to our household, you should have said something. We are in a real mess right now." Jane's furious voice was so loud that I instinctively pulled the phone away from my ear. Confused, I asked, "What?" "It's about money, money!" Jane yelled, filling me on the family's current situation. Firstly, Brian had been laid off. He could have clung to his job, but he thought he could rely on his parents for support and quit. My parents were shocked. "We're actually broke," Mom told Brian and Jane, revealing they were in debt. Dad is a good person and has a personality that is easy to be deceived by others. Dad was too trusting and had co-signed a loan for a friend, who then skipped town. On top of that, Dad was still paying off a car loan. When I was living at home, I used to give them about $4,000 a month, which was barely enough for them to get by. Now, they had no one to rely on, and Brian couldn't go back to his job. Desperate and furious, Jane was calling me to ask for help. "You're making how much a month? It's unfair that you give $4,000. Just help us out." I was stunned by the mess at my former home, but I had no intention of helping. "I'm married now, so I have no obligation to that household anymore. If you need help, look elsewhere," I said. After a few seconds, Jane burst into laughter. "Haha, you got married? With that face? You slab who always wore sweats. You're lying." "It's not a lie. I'm married." "Who would marry someone as ugly as you?" I was boiling with rage at Jane's crude laughter when Sam walked in. Just when I was about to hang up the phone, Sam shows up. "Lend me your phone," he said. I handed it over, and Sam spoke into it. "This is Sam, Diane's husband. I've heard everything you've been yelling. Diane is not ugly. I find her adorable, and above all, she has a beautiful heart. I think people who speak ill of others, like you, are the ones with tainted and ugly hearts." Jane was making a fuss on the other end, but Sam casually hung up. "Thank you," I said. "I couldn't let her get away with it," Sam replied, smiling shyly. Not being a tech-savvy, I didn't know how to block numbers. Sam taught me, and I promptly blocked Brian, my parents, and Jane. Of course, I blocked their messages too. I thought I was finally free from that family, but it wasn't that simple. Our new home, Sam's place, was within walking distance from my parents' house. One day, while Sam was at work, Brian, my parents, and Jane all showed up at our doorstep. When I opened the door, a red-faced Brian yelled at Jane, "Go on, apologize!" Jane started sobbing and apologizing profusely in the communal hallway of the condo. Confused, I asked my parents what was going on. The conversation was about what happened after Brian lost his job due to company restructuring. Brian seemed stressed out looking for work and couldn't rely on his parents, who he thought would support him. This tension often led to arguments with Jane. That's when Jane let it slip. "I didn't lie just to kick that freeloader out." When Brian listened closely, he realized Jane had framed me for something I didn't do. Apparently, Jane felt the house was too small and thought she'd get her own room if I were gone. Brian was furious at Jane for trying to kick me out, their financial support. The parents were angry too, saying it had gone too far. I felt sorry for Jane as she kept apologizing, tears streaming down her face. I glared at Mom when she said, "Just forgive her already." "I don't intend to forgive anyone. Why are you, Brian, Dad, and Mom acting like it's none of your business? If you had believed me when Jane set me up, none of this would have happened." "Well, none of us would have doubted you if Jane hadn't done something so stupid," Brian retorted, visibly irritated. I could only sigh. "What you, Brian, Dad, and Mom did to me isn't just that. Brian, you and Jane always made fun of me. Do you know how it feels to be called ugly and a freeloader every day? Despite all the financial help I've given, Dad and Mom didn't help me either. How did you feel when I was being insulted? Didn't you think of helping me?" Accused by me, Brian swallowed his words. The parents looked shocked for a moment. Then Mom started crying and Dad looked down. "So, I have no intention of helping," I said, moving to close the front door. "Wait, please," Brian exclaimed, starting to deeply apologize next to Jane. "If things stay like this, all of us, me, Dad, Mom, and Jane, will be homeless. We might have to sell the house. Please help us." At Brian's words, the parents also knelt and deeply apologized to me. It was quite a sight for adults apologizing, but I simply said no and closed the front door. For a while, I could hear knocking and voices calling for me, but eventually it seemed like Brian and the others had given up. When I told Sam about it after coming home from work, he asked, "Are you okay?" I smiled and said, "Yeah, we're moving soon anyway." Sam lives in a house that's spacious for one person, but a bit cramped for two. We had already decided to move to a larger home, especially considering the possibility of having kids in the future. We've started preparing for the move, and we have no intention of telling Brian and the others our new address. This way, we were able to move without any interference from Brian. What happened next was surprising. I got a call from the police. After Sam and I moved, it seems Brian and his crew visited our old home. They were causing such a ruckus early in the morning that the neighbors called the police. When the police arrived, Brian and Jane were acting out, and they ended up being taken away. Brian apparently told the police to contact me to pick him up, but why should I? I explained that I had no reason to do so, and the officer said, "I see, take care," before hanging up. I don't know what led to do it, but from what I've heard from local acquaintances, Brian and the others are now sleeping under a bridge. Brian's job search isn't going well, and his parents are getting old. I do think life must be hard for them. But I can only think of it as someone else's problem now. Sam and I are living a happy life. Our new home is spacious, beautiful, single-family house. We moved closer to Sam's workplace, so he is thrilled that we are able to spend more time with family. I'm happy about that too. That's because I found out I was pregnant shortly after we moved. When I told Sam's parents we couldn't rely on my own for childcare, they said, "Feel free to consult us anytime." And Sam assures me, "Don't worry, I'll take paternity leave and help with raising the child. I can't wait for the baby to be born." You're getting ahead of yourself. I can't help but chuckle at Sam, who's eagerly awaiting our baby. I might have lost my blood-related family, but from now on, I want to cherish my real family.